breaking news today, a blockbuster trade. Adam Schefter reporting that the Dolphins are dealing three-time All-Pro cornerback Jalen Ramsey and tight end Jonnu Smith to the Steelers for fellow three-time All-Pro safety Minkah Fitzpatrick. The teams also swap lower round draft picks. Ramsey gets a small raise to $26.6 million for next season. We bring in NFL analyst Mina Kimes with more on this breaking news. Mina, two All-Pro defensive backs traded for each other. What was your initial reaction to this news?
Yeah, it's always fascinating when you get a player for player. Granted, there was another player and some picks involved, but really we're talking about two players and two teams essentially both betting, hey, we think we would be better with your defensive back. And when you look at the teams and their defensive schemes, you start to understand why. First, I'll talk about Miami. Look, Jalen Ramsey wanting out, that's not about scheme, and their cornerback room is a major issue. That said, I do think Minkah Fitzpatrick, who of course was first drafted by Miami, is a better fit for their split safety defense as opposed to Pittsburgh, which played amongst the most single high in the NFL. I think in that scheme under defensive coordinator Anthony Weaver, he can get eyes on the football a bit, maybe make plays on the ball the way he did early in his career. On the other side, Ramsey's deployment I think is fascinating because for Pittsburgh, you really could see him used in a number of different ways. He could play inside the slot. He could play safety as well, which is a transition he's talked about. I think he can be a chess piece in the defense because he is still capable of playing at a high level.
Yeah, some people would have looked at this trade kind of like the Spider-Man meme, pointing at each other because you got two defensive players. But to your point, Ramsey can do a lot of different things, and maybe he can help out the Steelers defense that ranked in the bottom 10 for passing yards allowed last season. Now, the second part of this trade is Jonnu Smith. He's headed to Pittsburgh. How does this impact the Steelers offense?
I really like this acquisition for the Steelers offense. First of all, Jonnu Smith was excellent last year, fourth amongst all tight ends in yards after the catch. And in Pittsburgh, he joins an offense that already uses a ton of 2-3 tight end sets. I have to think that's going to go up even more. It really tells us, I think, a story of what Arthur Smith's vision is for this offense with Aaron Rodgers. They want to come out with multiple tight ends. They want to run the football. Jonnu Smith gives him a target underneath who can get the ball out quickly and he can get yards after the catch. And I think he pairs really well with DK Metcalf as more of your outside deep threat. So I like how he fits into this offense. I like how he fits in with this already excellent tight end group with Pat Freiermuth and Darnell Washington, who's more of a blocker. I think it's a good trade for them.
Yeah, they're trying to make power moves for sure. And Jonnu Smith, to your point, he had a career year last season for the Dolphins, setting franchise records for receptions and receiving yards by tight end en route to his first Pro Bowl selection. So thank you, Mina. The Jalen Ramsey trade is just the latest of several key moves by the Steelers. They lost Justin Fields, Russell Wilson, Najee Harris, and George Pickens on offense, but signed Aaron Rodgers and traded for DK Metcalf. Defensively, Pittsburgh gained and signed Darius Slay and grabbed Oregon tackle Derek Harmon in the draft.
On the doorstep of NFL history, the Chiefs will be denied.
They play better than us from start to finish.
Kansas City Chiefs flat out cannot block the Eagles' pressure.
It's intercepted.
Those early turnovers swing the momentum of the game. It's going to hurt for a while. It was something that we'll think about for the rest of our careers and hopefully motivate us to be even better.
As the Kansas City Chiefs prepare for training camp, they have some extra motivation coming off of a Super Bowl loss that crushed their three-peat hopes back in February. Jeff Darlington details the offseason moves Kansas City has made since then and the mentality of Patrick Mahomes entering the 2025 season.
Fueled by heartbreak, driven by defeat, Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes had felt this feeling before. Stung by a Super Bowl loss 4 years earlier. And now, mere moments after February's loss to the Eagles, he was going through it again.
Anytime you lose a Super Bowl, it's the worst feeling in the world. These will be the two losses that will motivate me to be even better for the rest of my career. They hurt probably more than the wins feel good.
If you thought that was just post-game hyperbole, well, Mahomes' thoughts since that day have suggested otherwise.
When you lose a Super Bowl, I think there's sometimes in those workouts where you may be a little tired. You have that extra added motivation to finish even harder, finish even stronger. You have that bad taste in your mouth from the last time you stepped on the football field and gives you the push that you want to go out there and be better and show what we're really about.
So what are the 2025 Chiefs really about? Their offseason certainly wasn't a complete overhaul. refined adjustments instead, with the hope that a healed wide receiving core can help ignite the offense. Rashee Rice is back and healthy. Hollywood Brown, who missed much of the regular season, will get more time to create chemistry with Mahomes. Xavier Worthy enters camp with a year of promise under his belt.
Welcome to the end zone, Travis Kelce.
And Travis Kelce is ready for at least one more run at it. Of course, there are still questions. The left side of the offensive line is a significant uncertainty, and aside from star Chris Jones, the defensive line is a bit thin as well. But for what the Chiefs might lack entering 2025, they might gain back in a hunger that resonates throughout this Kansas City building, empowered by the pain of this year's Super Bowl loss. Mahomes is back for more. Is it worth a few wins? Another trip to the Super Bowl? To Mahomes, it isn't worth anything unless it ends with him raising the Lombardi Trophy once more.
We now bring in NFL analyst Mina Kimes, and the Chiefs came up short in the Super Bowl. Their offense had injuries and issues protecting Patrick Mahomes. Mina, how much better do you expect this offense to be this upcoming season?
I'm pretty optimistic about the Chiefs' offense, and a lot of it has to do with the return of their number one wide receiver, Rashee Rice. There's questions, of course, looming about a potential suspension for him, but assuming he is available week one, as it seems, he, to me, was the missing piece in this offense last year. So from the second half of his rookie season through his injury in week 3, he was first amongst all receivers in the NFL in yards after the catch, fourth in yards per route run. I think he's really effective versus zone coverage, which will alleviate Travis Kelce in the regard, and he pairs really well with Xavier Worthy, who's more of the deep threat and can work outside. So to me, having him back, even if there is some turnover with the offensive line, we'll see how that goes, more than compensates for any issues they had last year.
Back to our breaking news today, a blockbuster trade. Adam Schefter reporting that the Dolphins are dealing 3-time All-Pro corner Jalen Ramsey and the tight end Jonnu Smith to the Steelers for fellow 3-time All-Pro safety Minkah Fitzpatrick. The teams also swapped lower round draft picks, Ramsey getting a pay bump to the tune of $26.6 million for next season. There's been a lot of reaction also around the NFL from this trade. Plenty of talk on social media, plenty of posts as well. One post, though, stood out in particular from former Dolphins and current Raiders running back Raheem Mostert saying, hot take, be a Pro Bowler on the Dolphins, get treated like you know what. Happy for my guy, though. Go ball out. Try to keep it clean for TV. With that, we welcome in our NFL insider, Dan Graziano. And Graz, break this trade down for us, starting with the Jalen Ramsey side of things.
Yeah, Jalen Ramsey's a player the Dolphins had come out and said publicly that they were planning to move on from. So, a lot of the reaction I'm hearing is sort of good for them to get a player like Minkah Fitzpatrick back in return. That's well done. They're shedding salary in this deal. It was just sort of time for whatever reason for the two of them to part ways. It's worth also pointing out, you mentioned Jalen Ramsey getting a raise out of this. This is a player that has been on the move a few times in his career and does a really good job of sort of leveraging, himself and getting something out of it each time. So good for him for getting the raise. The Steelers see him as a versatile piece they can use inside or outside or even at safety in their secondary, and they feel like he'll help them in a number of ways.
And so we knew that Jalen Ramsey and the Dolphins, they wanted to part ways. Let's get to the Minkah Fitzpatrick side of things. Why were the Steelers willing to give him up?
Yeah, the Steelers love Minkah Fitzpatrick. He's been a great player for them, but the main reason they were willing to give him up is what they were getting in return. But overall, he's a player that they probably wouldn't have dreamed of parting with a couple of years ago, but he's got 1 interception total in the last 2 years. He had 17 in his first 4 seasons with Pittsburgh, and while that's not necessarily the strongest measure of a defensive back's value, it was always a huge part of Minkah Fitzpatrick's game, that ball hawking ability. And if they feel like that's fallen off a little bit, then maybe they feel like it's better to move on sooner rather than doing it too late.
Now, the X factor in this deal could be Jonnu Smith. What could Smith's impact be in Pittsburgh?
This is a player that Steelers offensive coordinator Arthur Smith has coached twice before in the NFL with Tennessee and with Atlanta. He knows how to use him. He loves using him in a variety of ways. Jonnu Smith is likely to line up all over the formation, out wide, in tight, in the backfield. They really feel like they can use him in a number of different ways. They feel like he gives them another explosive element in the offense to go with DK Metcalf and Calvin Austin, who's a young receiver they have high hopes for. They feel like he's a different kind of player than Pat Freiermuth and that they'll complement each other. The Dolphins have been looking for another pass catcher ever since trading away George Pickens, and Jonnu Smith might just be the guy that they need.
Yeah,
I said Dolphins, I meant Steelers.
Yeah, I got you. Look, Jonnu Smith could be a sneaky big pickup for the Steelers. Graz with the latest. Thanks so much.
SportsCenter with Scooby and Amina. Until someone takes their crown, the Chiefs are the kings of the AFC, and they've been to the Super Bowl 5 times in the last 6 seasons. They're coming off their 3rd straight appearance in the game as well. Every season, the Bills and Ravens say, this is the year we knocked them off, but then the Chiefs come out with that Lee Corso, not so fast, my friend. However, the Bills and Ravens got some MVP quarterbacks on the roster, and they believe they can win. Dan Graziano tells us more.
Josh Allen's Buffalo Bills, Lamar Jackson's Baltimore Ravens. 2 elite NFL outfits, both trying to slay the same dragon. Perennial playoff teams both, but neither can seem to get past Patrick Mahomes' Chiefs and make it to the Super Bowl.
Chiefs kingdom reigns again in the AFC.
Which of these teams is more likely to get over that hump this year? The Bills seem to have everything they need. They spent this offseason locking up the bulk of their talented young core on contract extensions and adding veteran edge rusher Joey Bosa.
Pressure's coming. He doesn't see Bosa, and Bosa takes him down from behind.
Their schedule should help. Only 6 games against teams that made last year's playoffs. Only 1 trip outside the Eastern time zone.
Here he goes, walking down the sideline, breaks a tackle. Derrick Henry has done it again.
Baltimore kept its offense mainly the same, keeping star left tackle Ronnie Stanley off the free agent market and signing Derrick Henry to an extension. And the defense looks solid as ever.
Zappia looks, oh, he threw a pick. Threw it right into the hands of Nate Wiggins, and the rookie walks in for an early pick 6.
Their biggest issue could be their own division, where Cleveland is the only team that's had a losing season in the last 3 years. 2 MVP quarterbacks, 2 stellar organizations, both trying to break through and cash in with a title at some point during the era of Mahomes. A Week 1 matchup between the two could give someone a nice head start.
We welcome back in Mina Kimes, and the Ravens and Bills are looking to get over the hump and get to the Super Bowl after the Chiefs have been in their way the last several years. So, Mina, who are the X factors for these teams to help accomplish that goal, starting with the Ravens?
Yeah, I'm going to spotlight a second-year player who I thought really flew under the radar last year, despite being a first-round draft pick, and that's Nate Wiggins, who is starting outside cornerback for the Ravens. In the second half of last season, was excellent. Marlon Humphrey shifted to primarily playing in the slot, where he was tremendous as well. And for me, he is an X factor because if he builds on that play and takes another leap, he could be one of the best corners in the league. You acquire Jai Alexander to play outside. Obviously, he has his injury history. Cheeto Awuzie as well. But if Nate Wiggins can be the type of corner who blanks #1 receivers, well, this Ravens pass defense should pick up right where they left off last season. I'm sticking with the theme. I'm going to go with another cornerback and another first-round draft pick. Only this year's for the Buffalo Bills, Maxwell Hairston. Primarily because that second cornerback position for them opposite Christian Benford was such a glaring weakness last year. You really saw teams go after their second corner, whether it was Russell Douglas, Kyer Elam in the postseason. If Hairston can live up to his draft potential, I think that fills a major hole in this Bills defense. It's easy to see why they picked him. He's an important player for them.
Yeah, Hairston played just 7 games last season for Kentucky, but before that, he led the SEC with 5 interceptions in 2023. Now, we know every team needs an X factor. However, between these two teams, who's in a position to take down the king of the AFC, the Kansas City Chiefs?
It's the Baltimore Ravens, who I think have the best team in the AFC, and that includes the Chiefs. Both the Bills and the Ravens, obviously tremendous offenses, I figure will continue to be so. But for me, the Ravens defense is the difference here. The Bills defense is good. I think the Ravens defense has the potential to be great. In the second half of last year, after they reshuffled their personnel at safety in particular, they were statistically the best defense in football. So now you have that continuity build on. They added pieces. I love the addition of Malachi Starks in the draft. And I'm very optimistic about this defense, and I think they're going to be incredibly balanced.
Look, I know Bills fans definitely do not want to hear that, Mina. Thanks so much for that insight right there.